Hi, everyone. Welcome to our second virtual user group meeting. John Bartz here with Network Consulting Services, and thanks for joining the Ivanti Enterprise Service Management Meetup. I have 5 other panelists with me today. We've got Brian Hoskins, Director of Service Management, Todd Hogan, Director of IT Asset Management, 2 of our deployment engineers, Craig Middlestat and Gary Lyon, and our special guest from Ivanti, Alan Taylor, Principal Product Manager for ISM and Voice. So, gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon. How are you?
Morning, John. How are you?
We've got quite a bit to get through here in 60 minutes, so thanks to all of you attendees for your feedback and tips and guidance when you registered. And you'll see the results of that today. Please ask questions throughout today's user group. In the Q&A section below, we're monitoring those throughout. So please ask questions. We have a roadmap session. You can see the topics that you picked out right here. And then we have a special guest from Virginia, Loudoun County Public Schools. So Brian Hoskins will be having a conversation with Brian McGurn. So lots of tips and tricks, and ask the experts, and hats off to all of you who gave us your tips and tricks as well. So let's go ahead and get started. Mr. Alan Taylor, I see that you have joined here. So let's go ahead and hand the ball off to you if you want to go ahead and take the ball here and give us a quick 10-minute overview roadmap of Ivanti ESM.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So thanks, everyone, for joining. As I mentioned, we'll just go through the roadmap real quick. But I did want to take a look back a little bit, as it were. And one of the things you'll see here is what we've done throughout the year of 2019. I took over the reins of the service manager and the voice products in very late 2017. And in the last couple of years, whether it's 2018, 2019, even 2020, is been very, very busy in a number of areas. User experience, artificial intelligence, localization, and integrations are some of the big key pieces that I've had over the last year or so. And we see what we've done in 2019 with regards to integrations to collaboration tools. About a year ago in our Skype business adapters, driving into the user experience through self-service, and then on into the mobile analyst capability. So those analysts on the go working their incidents and their tasks and so forth. And we've done quite a bit in that area, but 2020 is really going to accelerate and press the gas down this concept of a user experience for everyone and everywhere. Regardless of whether you're on a mobile device or desktop, we're going to continue this evolution towards a seamless experience, regardless of platform or orientation. Looking at integration and automation, which is going to be key. And by that, I mean really calling out the fact that it's pre-built. So a great analogy that I've used is we don't want to hand customers, it's kind of the box of Legos and say, here's all the pieces you need to build it, off you go. That's not helpful. It protracts the value that you can get out of a solution and really kind of raises that cost of ownership. By delivering pre-built integration, we can give customers a working model. Here's the model complete. It works as is, but we're still giving the flexibility to be able to enable customers to change the different elements and to meet their unique needs. And then really innovation right across the autonomous edge. And what can we do to drive this autonomous environment where we have bots that are constantly monitoring areas such as user productivity or security and other areas? And what can we do to identify and remediate completely automatic issues? But if we needed, how can we incorporate the end user or the analyst in that loop to try to remediate issues if needed? So one of the biggest things that we're leveraging here is really from a mobile perspective and focusing on from an analyst standpoint. And in late 2019, we delivered all new applications that allow analysts to manage their incidents and manage their tasks. One of the things that we're driving towards is extending this into request offerings. So analysts will be able to manage incidents, tasks, service requests off on the mobile device. But then beyond just what the analyst might do. So continue this evolutionary process to deliver interfaces for your knowledge managers, the problem managers, the change managers, really being able to take that on a mobile device or into the desktop experience and having it be very seamless between the two. And that's really going to be that vision delivery over the next couple of releases. But 2020 is really going to accelerate on that. Mobile capability beyond just using the device, as we look to how we can create security from a login perspective, leveraging biometric authentication is something our customers have asked for. But probably the biggest capability to complement being able to work those records on your device is all the mobile and push notifications. So whether it's a priority one incident or a new assignment or whatever it might be, getting that notification on your mobile device, perhaps on your wearable, really helps to improve the service level that we get to customers. We're able to address issues quicker, be made aware of things faster, and be able to take action without having to run back to my desktop to do that. So that's really going to be one of the key pieces there. And as I look at other highlights across 2020, beyond the user experience, integrations into being able to connect to different discovery repositories and take that information in, normalize it, reconcile it, and populate the CMDB. Pre-built automation through software requests to deploy or uninstall software. Really looking at collaboration from a Teams perspective. We already did Skype for Business, Teams here in this year, as well as native chat with the very next release. And I'll get to that in a moment. But you see some of the pre-built automation connectors we're delivering, Jira and Slack in the G Suite, and Epic and Intune, and a whole host of products that are coming. And that up into including integration through the Ivanti Cloud into the autonomous environment. Being able to have bots that are constantly looking at different aspects and different elements in the environment is really going to be key, because it's constant detection. And we're looking for any number of areas. There are currently, I've got a sample here of 60 different things, just a small sample here of looking for account control or firewall issues. How many users are experiencing low disk space or bottlenecks or blue screens, and having these bots detect and remediate where they can, so that the user can just get fixed and they don't have to involve the service desk. Application crashes is a very interesting piece, and think about the construct that we all might have dealt with from time to time, where maybe Word or PowerPoint or another application just crashes. Chances are you're not logging a ticket with IT every time PowerPoint decides it wants to crash, right? You've all just restart it and move on and think, well, that was odd, and you go from there. But once that continues to happen is where the bots come in to then say, well, wait a minute, I've detected that Alan's PowerPoint has crashed 3 times in 2 days. I'm going to let the service desk know that they need to reach out. So now, rather than waiting for the analyst or for the customer to log a ticket, these analysts are now calling the customer and saying, hey, Alan, we're seeing that you're getting a lot of PowerPoint crashes. I just want to call in and remediate and help you through that so that doesn't impact you any longer. That changes that service experience from a less reactive, frustrated customer calling in experience to one where the service desk can proactively help the customer. And as this says there on the right, really improves that relationship and can highlight from a proactive perspective. Now, as we come in there and look, as I'm aware of time, just a few minutes, can answer questions. From a roadmap standpoint, this is really getting into the features and in a timing perspective. 2020.1 is our current release that is in production, and really drove into the mobile analyst capability. Pre-built enterprise service management content for human resources, improved on mobile app support as we look at security and single sign-on, and delivered a lot of those features that were available in the cloud-only patch in January to our on-premises customers. Now, 2020.2, which is going to start to roll into production in July, introduces native self-service chat. So an end user is able to go to the self-service portal and begin a live chat session with the service desk. And the service desk can support that customer, and then they could log an incident or just answer a quick question all directly through native. And again, this will support our existing integrations to Skype for Business and to Slack and the upcoming Teams from an enterprise collaboration type tool. Mobile push notifications, biometric authentication, and creating service requests all on the mobile device is going to become available, as well as enterprise service management content native for facilities management. Many customers have expanded beyond the walls of IT for service management use, and we want to deliver content that leverages the capability without needing customers to build it. You'll be able to go to the marketplace, that is marketplace.ivanticloud.com. You'll be able to download that content, add it into your test environment, and see if you want to leverage that in production. It is not going to be chargeable add-on. This is simply value add content that we're making available through our marketplace. And then on into 2020.3 is our Teams integration, the service catalog, favorites, as well as the configurable home pages for those end users being able to deliver a very personal experience is coming, as well as leveraging the mobile capability beyond just the service desk. And that could include asset manager, problem manager, change manager, and so forth. So, and that is in addition to the innovation that we're doing through the Ivanti Cloud with our the cloud assistants, the IT analyst workspace that we're delivering, as well as a new cloud discovery capability. So a lot going on from a service manager standpoint that helps deliver on that promise of an elegant user experience that serves a global market beyond just IT. So that should be real quick. There's a lot more I could talk about, but I just wanted to take a few brief moments to kind of catch everyone up on where we are. And I guess we could open the floor for questions, yeah?
Hey, Alan, we do have one question that's come up so far.
Mm-hmm.
Someone has asked that there's becoming more self-healing software that helps automatically remediate issues that are being discovered for users without contacting the service desk. Is that something Ivanti's looking into?
Yeah, and that's really what the Ivanti Assistance starts to go towards, and that's already available, already released today. So we can deliver some of that self-help, self-healing capability right now. And we'll continue this, whether it's interaction through bots, more machine learning and that type of thing, to be able to understand what we'll call this ambient experience, if you will. So it's not just the user in the channel they chose to come in on, self-service or phone or chat. It's understanding everything about the user, how they use the tool, what is the operating environment like. Really understanding that user experience, and then as the bots do from an assistance perspective, continue to identify points that could be user impacting. Self-help, self-remediate those things, either before they impact the user altogether or during that process, to where I'm an end user who might be chatting with a bot first, who says, well, I've noticed this and this, I could fix that for you. If you'd like to, click here. And the user can just click there, and it begins this remediation process. So yeah, we're absolutely looking at that and delivering some of that autonomous capability today.
Okay, one more says, what's the plan to support custom objects in Mobile Analyst?
That is something we're continuing right now. That second line is through 2020. Into 2021, I'm looking at incorporating that type of responsive design across all of our business objects, including custom business objects. So customers will be free to use whatever we provide out of the box, as well as things that they create on their own on their mobile device. That is
Great.
Absolutely in the plan.
Great. Can you just take a minute and talk about the virtual interchange that's going on? If people don't know about it, how they can find out and where they could register?
Yeah, they're on virtual interchange. So what you may not know, so every year, Ivanti tends to do the big interchange event. It's when our customers and our partners who really come together and learn from Ivanti experts. They learn from peers. They learn from partners. But as you might imagine, this year was a little different. And so one of the things we're doing is delivering that virtually. And that kicked off with our State of the Union addresses from both an enterprise service management side as well as our endpoint management side. And we've had different sessions, either live or pre-recorded, and there's an opportunity to sign up for Meet the Expert sessions, but that's going on now. So if you wanted to, you can go to Ivanti.com. Up in the upper right says company, and then events, and then interchange. You'll get a lot of that information about what's happening there.
Thanks. And we also have that on our events page as well, too, at ncsi.us if you want to go there. So, Alan, thanks for the overview there of the roadmap. You can hang out. We wanted to put you up front there just in case you had to jump off there and go do other things. We appreciate you joining us, and thanks for that. We're going to move right into the ESM discussion topics. Brian, we were going to talk about asset configuration management, asset versus configuration management.
Thanks, John. So as I'm out talking to customers, going through and meeting potential customers as we're going through this, there is a real confusion in a lot of customers about the difference between configuration management and asset management, or what's the difference between a CMDB and an AMDB, and where does one end and the other begin, and how does it all work together, and the different pieces along with that, right? So in the marketplace, obviously there's lots of tools that are out there that can go through and do, service and asset management together or separately, or the different pieces that are there. There are tools that have separate AMDBs from their CMDB, and those are captured completely unique and separate records and different components associated with that. Obviously, today we're focused on Ivanti and all the great things that Ivanti has done around service and asset. Now, what's adding to a little bit of the confusion in Ivanti's world is that it's all the same record. Right? It doesn't matter whether we're importing things and viewing them from an asset, or we're importing them as a CI and viewing them as a CI from configuration management side. It's all the same. So really, the way I've been talking about this with lots of different customers along here, trying to help them understand the difference here, is that in Ivanti, it's one record. We call it a CI, we call it an asset. It's all the same thing. It's going to have all of the information from both a service and an asset in that record. And then it just takes upon what goggles we're going to put on to be able to go through and see that information that we want. So if we're somebody that's focused on delivering a business service, and we're focused on operational excellence and all the different components that fall into a service management world, then we're looking at that through a configuration management lens. Right? And so we're talking about what's out there in the network, what's being used to deliver or consume services in our organization, what's the relationship between those assets and the different components associated with that. So from a configuration management, we're really worried about while it's being used to consume or deliver a service, a laptop that somebody has, or a server that's actively being used, any of those different components associated with that. Asset management encompasses the CMDB configuration management while something's being used, but it also includes it through procurement all the way through disposal, right? So as somebody's requesting it and we're buying it and we're getting the information, we're tracking POs and we're tracking all of the different details associated with that asset through its delivery of a service, through restoration. So if you can go to the next slide there, John, you can kind of see, just as a quick visual, to be able to go through and look at, here is a whole life cycle of an asset. Request, through procurement, through receiving, through stock management, and then configuration management picks it up once we deploy it, when it's being used, when we're monitoring it, when we're tracking it, when we're supporting it, when we're doing move add changes against that particular CI. That's when it would fall into our configuration management world, right? If you were to talk to a server admin about the procurement of the server and the details that are there, they would be not interested in those pieces that are there. They care about how it's deployed, what we're doing to monitor and support it, right? And so it's very much the different lenses or goggles that we want to put on. We're going to put on goggles for asset management. We're going to see things like procurement information, stock information, disposal information. We're going to put those CMDB or configuration service management goggles on. We're going to be really caring about what's its relationship, what service is it delivering, who's consuming that service, all the different pieces associated with that. So if you go to the next slide there. Now, with Ivanti, when we're talking through, because we have a CMDB and an asset database or an AMDB that is one, we have things that are going to exist on their own, and then we're going to have things that are going to overlap. So for example, we have CIs that are also assets. So when we talk about a server or a switch or a router or a laptop or a desktop or a printer, all of these kind of things are CIs and also assets that have whole life cycles around them. But we also have some things that are CIs that aren't assets, right? A web service that we're connecting to, and the services that we deliver out to the organization, whether they're business services, whether they're technical services, all would fall into this space of CIs that aren't assets. And then we have assets that aren't CIs. Consumables, mice, keyboard, sometimes monitors in a lot of organizations become a consumable, right? Software licenses. From a service management and a configuration management, we're not so much concerned about what the licenses that are on those machines are. That's very much a financial component and controlling that kind of stuff. Consumables, all we care about is that we have enough on stock to be able to give to different people along those lines. So just to kind of break it down, remember that it's one database, one record within Ivanti, and then just what role we happen to have is the view into that data that we're going to see, right? So we're already running a little bit over, so I won't show any of this. Anyone who wants to see some more detail, please reach out. I'm happy to go through and talk about that. But as you kind of go through and see that, you can manage all of that from there. So it will show different things based upon what role you are and what you're doing from there.
Okay, great. Moving right along. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A. We're going to move on to Mr. Todd Hogan, getting started in delivering value with ITAM. Kind of tough to do in a 10-minute time frame. I know you've got some great content on our YouTube channel, Todd. You've done a lot of webinars for us in the past. But Todd, let's give you a couple of minutes here to talk about asset management.
All right. Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a great day. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to be talking a little bit about how do you get started with asset management. And the first thing is you really need to know what are your business drivers? What's the thing that's driving this, so that when you're trying to deliver something, you've got support from your executives and you can get this job done. There's some common concerns that we see, and these are the 6 most common that I run into from executives is simply, I don't know what we have. I don't know what it costs. And one of the bigger ones that's happening right now is the security team and auditors coming back and saying, look, we have to have asset management. In fact, the Center for Internet Security says of their top 20 controls, you can see that number 1 and number 2, it's all about asset management, knowing what hardware is in your environment, what software is in your environment, being able to control privileges and users and all those things. So security is becoming a big part of asset management. The end user experience, like Brian was just saying, making sure that end user is happy, and that we're getting good performance when they're ready to request a device or be able to refresh a device. Another thing we hear often is, I've got too many systems and not enough people. How do I reduce that complexity? And the last thing we would really want from our executives, they just want to know that the data is accurate. So how do you get started? Well, of course, you have a lot of your own concerns, and you might be working on a project right now where you have different people from parts of the different organizations saying, we really need this, we really need that. And so all of a sudden you feel this tremendous pressure because there's a lot of people that are wanting good, proper asset management. So you kick off, you purchase a tool. We hope it's Ivanti Asset Manager, and you begin this journey. And the first thing we find out is that as we start to peel the layers off this onion, kind of like this picture, it gets kind of a little fuzzy, because procurement's already doing it a certain way, receiving assets a different way. You have lots of different discovery tools. You have old systems that have some data. You have all kinds of Excel spreadsheets. And so you have kind of this complex environment where there's lots of things going on, but you're trying to kind of like a boxing match, because there's all this existing culture and process, and sometimes even politics gets in the way. And then you're trying to roll out an asset program, doing it the right way, making sure that data is accurate. And oftentimes we're kind of in the middle. Where do we start with this thing? How do we have all these demands. The auditors are saying, hey, we have to know this, we have to know that, but we're having a hard time gathering that data together. So one of the things that we recommend at NCSI is a phased approach, is being able to take all of those demands you have and roll them out in a judicious fashion where we can deliver value with each step of the journey. And if we do that, we can be successful. And one of the hardest tasks as you roll out your new program is sometimes we want to do too much too fast. And then it becomes really hard because we've got some old habits and some difficult things, the way things have been done in the past, to try and bring that data together. So the phased approach at NCSI, we recommend kind of what we call the phased business cycle. And we're going to start out with understanding, what is that business driver? Well, the first thing that we always hear is, I don't know what we have. So let's focus on getting enough data into the tool to be able to answer that question so that we can tell our auditors this is what we have. Now, sometimes this doesn't mean having all kinds of elaborate integrations and things to begin with. We just want to get that data in there and get it accurate, provide some metrics around the value, and then we're going to repeat this cycle around and around, trying to control that environment. But here's the thing that we found at NCSI. The biggest challenge you're going to face isn't going to be the rollout of Asset Manager. It's a fabulous tool with tremendous capability to connect to all of your data sources, saying it completely integrates with service management. It's an outstanding tool. But the challenge you're going to face is your own data. Being able to find good quality, accurate asset data out of those procurement systems, those legacy enterprise systems, your discovery tools, and be able to bring that data in such a way that that data is accurate. And what we find is that probably the biggest challenge most of our customers make when they're trying to roll this out is sometimes we try to do too much, or we let old habits creep back in, and that data that we're bringing into the tool isn't accurate, or there's no way of keeping it accurate. And what happens then is, even though you roll out Asset Manager that has all kinds of wonderful capabilities and features and benefits, if the data coming into the tool isn't accurate and you can't keep it accurate, then it really doesn't matter. And 6 or 8 months or a year from now, your auditors are going to come back to you and say, hey, this just isn't working. The data is not accurate. And so one of the things we try to focus on is a phased approach where we work on helping you understand what data is critical for each one of those phases, and then getting that data implemented into your tool in such a way that you can deliver value on each level, and kind of have a maturity path to guide you as you go through this process. And this is a challenge because many of you, I looked at our guest list today, there's lots of great friends out there that we've worked with in the past. You have some very complex environments with years and years of the way people already do it. And it can be really challenging as you try to ensure accurate data and build this out. So one of the things we encourage you to do as you start your asset program is on these first two down here, ITAM Assessment and Readiness Workshop and the ITAM Foundation. Get good, accurate data in there so that you can start with, you can get people to have trust and confidence in the data, and then build out your system in a sequential way. But the first step is really to just focus on the basics. So that's all I have today. Let's just, if we can help you as you're rolling this out, we've got a lot of years of experience and trying to understand how your data works and help you understand how you can bring it together in a way that will be successful. So,
okay, great. Thank you, Todd. I know 10 minutes doesn't do it justice there. So let's move on. If we were at a regular Ivanti user group meeting, we'd be networking and talking with folks. So what we wanted to do is bring somebody on here today to give us a little 5-minute interview about how they're using Ivanti. So hello, gentlemen. Thanks for joining us, Mr. McGurn. I know we chatted last week, and Brian Hoskins has a few questions here, and we just want to learn a little bit more about how you're using Ivanti.
All right, Brian, maybe you can just start with just a quick background of Loudoun County Public School System, kind of where you were and kind of the phase that you've gone through and where you're at today to kind of get things growing. So, kind of back when you were a land desk service desk customer and kind of that migration process.
Yeah, so this summer we migrated from land desk service desk to Ivanti Service Manager. We did our rollout in 6 weeks, which was highly aggressive. So we went all cloud. So we started off with, the core incident request, task, asset management. We had some existing integrations we had to reproduce. So we had an integration with our student information system for our asset data because we have a student one-to-one. So we have all the students in the support center. Sorry, that's what we call it, ISM, IAM, because we have both service manager and asset manager.
So let's just kind of give people a little bit of feel of the scale of the school system there. How many employees, students, and such?
Yeah, so we have 92 schools, about 85,000 students, and about 10,000 staff or employees.
And the way you're using it to support students, can you kind of just talk a little bit about that? Because I know you said one-to-one. I'm not sure that everyone understands. That means all of your students have like Chromebooks, right?
Right. And actually, we just finished rolling out the last set of Chromebooks. So we had to actually do that during the COVID-19. We had to hurry up and get Chromebooks to the remaining students. But yeah, so every student has it, well, 3rd through 12th grade has their own device. And so we have those Chromebooks loaded into asset management, and we have the students assigned to the device as the owner so we can tell who has what device. And then we have an integration with our student information system so that the parents can actually see what computer their child is assigned.
You also had some integration with some external support vendors that you work with. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we have a contracted hardware support provider, and we worked with NCSI to get an API integration built so that we can basically we create a ticket in ISM first, of course, and then the hardware repair can be sent via the API integration to the vendor's system. So it creates a ticket in the vendor's system, and then when the vendor picks up and repairs the device, it updates the incident and support center.
You guys have gone through a pretty extensive journey. I think you're live on incident, request, knowledge, self-service, change management, and asset management. So what's next?
Yeah, so up next for us is problem management. That's the next thing on our project schedule for this year, school year, because our year ends in July.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. I know it's been quite a journey. I guess I'll leave you with one last question to answer. Would you recommend people do it at the same speed that you guys did?
I don't know. We're kind of getting into the whole agile mindset, so I'm coming around. It beats having the requirements change after you worked on something for 6 or 9 months, and then the business changes in the meantime.
Thanks, Brian. I really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Let's go ahead and keep right on going on here. I do see some questions in there. We'll get to those in a minute, but we're moving on to Ask the ESM Experts. And Eric asked from City of Seattle, can you demo a successful connection to a web service from a request offering? And I'm not sure if that was Gary or Craig was going to jump on that one. Gentlemen?
Nope, that was me. This is Gary here from NCSI. So sure, so we can go ahead, and if we go ahead and click next for me. So this is a situation that we have set up here, right? We have a demo web script here. We can see some bit of it in the bottom there. We've gone ahead and created it as a simple quick action out in the service request module. And then as you can see here on the quick screenshot, we've got it set up. We're running the quick action in the workflow, right? So this is the basic setup of how we would go ahead and create a web service script and then call it from a workflow. And then on our next screen.
Okay, I apologize. I think we're missing a screenshot there, Gary.
All right,
I'll tell you what. Let's move right on to the next one here while we're fixing that one. James from Colleen Independent School. What are the major benefits of moving to ISM Cloud? Brian, I think you were going to answer that one.
Yeah. So ISM Cloud has more than just a few benefits to be able to go through it, but the first and foremost benefit that I'll talk about is that with ISM Cloud, you're going to get features that you're not going to be able to get by being an on-premise ISM customer, right? Because some of the things that Ivanti's doing with Ivanti Cloud, with the chatbots running on the Azure cloud, some of those pieces that are there, those integrations just aren't going to be available as an on-premise customer. So the cloud is where you want to be. You get upgrades are included with that. Ivanti obviously manages your platform, all the different pieces that go in to all of the cloud pieces there. But for me, the biggest advantage is that the technology Ivanti is rolling out is always cloud first, and then in some cases cloud only. And it's not that they want to alienate the on-premise customers. It's that the whole industry is going to cloud and integrations with cloud and moving to cloud pieces. And so there's things that just aren't available to integrate without being in the Ivanti Cloud to be able to do that, right? So things like the chatbot functions, things like the connection stuff to Ivanti Cloud, all of that stuff will require customers to be in the Ivanti Cloud. So lots of good reasons.
Let's go ahead and move on to the next one here. I believe it was Actuant. Oh, Brian, you're up again. Can we expect out-of-the-box integration with TeamViewer, Microsoft Teams, and other products?
Okay, so Alan just talked about Microsoft Teams. That is on plan for the end of this year. I'm suspecting that will be an extra charge rather than just straight out of the box, because it's being done kind of in the same model that the Skype for Business connector is done, which is an extra charge to that. Now, don't quote me 100%. And I think Alan had other things that he needed to go do to drop off, but that would be my expectation on that. I don't think Teams Viewer is on their list, but obviously remote control with Ivanti Cloud is on the list to be able to have, and then connections up to Intune you saw, and some of the other bigger brand names that are out there. And so I think that answers the question about the extra cost. And yes, Teams is coming. I don't think TeamViewer is, but there's several others coming as well.
Okay, Craig, you're up on Ask the ESM Experts. Jason from Friends in Financial. How do you set up recurring reminders for assets in certain statuses, for example, shipped or awaiting return?
Right. Well, thank you for the question, Jason. So there's probably a couple different ways you can do this, but one way you could set this up is to configure an email quick action, which will contain your reminder, and then you would need to create a couple new fields for a reminder boolean to initiate when that notification is initiated, and then also a reminder date. Once you add those fields, you would create a workflow that would set the reminder boolean to false and have a wait block that waits for the reminder date, and then send the reminder when the wait reminder date is met. You would then have a trigger that initiates the workflow based on the status moving into the ship status.
All right, Gary, you're back up again. Chad from Wisconsin Department of Corrections asking how to import monitors as a CI via an automated EPM import, which should make the monitors searchable in ISM.
Perfect. Yeah, so first things first, we always want to make sure where we're getting this data and that we're getting some good valid data. So the first thing I'd always recommend when we're talking about importing anything as a CI, make sure that the data that we're getting in EPM includes unique information about that monitor, specifically serial number, right? So we want to make sure that we're able to get that data to say this is that unique asset, and as that monitor switches from one computer to the next, that it follows the same serial number and that doesn't change. Once that is done, we could go ahead and simply set up a SQL to export all the data to a CSV that would be accessible from our ISM, and then just schedule that import to occur on a nightly, weekly basis.
Moving on to the tips and tricks. Jenny from City of Seattle, who, by the way, hosted a physical user group last fall for us. That was our first one last year. So City of Seattle, thanks for doing that. But Jenny, her tip is we created a workflow to monitor for SRs that have gone from fulfilled back to active state. She wasn't able to jump on, but Brian, did you want to chat about this real quickly?
Yeah, so, a lot of times somebody will go through and respond to something that tells you whatever you've done, either resolved an incident or fulfilled a service request, didn't meet their expectations. We've had lots of customers request that be something that the end user can initiate or some other value can go through and do that. And then a lot of organizations want to track kind of metrics and reporting against number of incidents and service requests that were unresolved or are moved back to an active state as they go through and do that. So this is just some tricks to go through and see when things start happening like that. This will allow you to go through and update. I don't want to get into all of the technical pieces along here. This can be made available to anyone who really wants that detail, but to kind of walk through and see when something gets moved from fulfilled to active. Then it starts to go through and see about tasks. It starts to coordinate, look at task counts, look at durations, goes through and moves that status and sets the values to different components in there, all with the different workflow pieces that are there. So it gives it a nice, powerful tool to be able to work with those things as you're pulling that in. And then again, here's some of the more detail where it goes through and sets the values back to different things. When somebody moves it back to active, what's it going to put into the information that's there, like assigning it back to the person who fulfilled it, or creating a new task and assigning the task to the person who completed the task, are pieces that can be all a part of that.
Okay, great. And we will make the PowerPoint available to you after if you'd like to get some more of this data here. So moving right along, Craig, you're up on the tips and tricks here.
Thanks for the opportunity to share some tips and tricks. Here's an example of using a tiered request offering with multiple approvals based on an employee's spending limits. So for example, we have something you're requesting with a certain dollar amount, and you're able to approve X amount. Well, I've set this example up where we're going through up to 4 tiers based on their spending limit. So you'll see here that based on the job title, I've set up that they're able to have a spending limit to approve up to a certain amount. And then for the current user, they have that amount, and their manager would have a different amount, and so on. So if you want to move to the next screen, as the request is created for that user, the manager section would fill in based on the amount that's being requested in the total and who's allowed to approve it. So approval number 1 is probably the current user with a spending limit of 0. So for the $204,000, the approval 2 manager would approve it first, and then the approval 3 user. So if you want to move to the next screen, that all of that needs to be done in preparation for setting up the request offering, so that we know which of the 4 approvers would be able to approve this. So here's an example of moving through approval 1, 2, 3, and 4, one after the other, and waiting for the first one to approve or reject before proceeding to the next. All right, the next item. So this is creating pre-configured offering templates in the form control section. So as you're building out common things that you're going to add to each of the request offerings, such as the customer information, the requester information, billing information, where they're at, and generic details, you can save them into the public templates, and then as you're creating new request offerings, you can drag the templates from the right side over to the left, and it will populate based on your saved template for common fields that you'll be putting on every offering. If you want to move to the next screen, after you drag it over, it'll populate all the fields you've configured for that template.
And Craig, one of the reasons we want to encourage this is because then all the fields are named the same for all of your business logic and your email logic and some of that kind of stuff, right?
Absolutely, yes. Consistency is important. Another tip would be to show an external link in a field description. The field description, each of the fields that you drag over has a description that you could add. So if you go to the HTML section of the description editor, you can add an href URL, which will contain either a URL to the document or to whatever it is you want to display. In this example, I have a URL here. That's where you'd put your URL possibly to a document for this policy, and then it would show the clean text with click here to view request policy.
Hey, Craig, actually, I wanted to butt in here for a second and show you can also upload this and host this right directly in ISM if you don't have another web server publicly accessible. It's easy to update and modify.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Next screen. And in the lower left, you'll see what that looks like from the user's perspective. Next, this one is configuring the price list product catalog items and adding requested items to a purchase order. One thing that in the current catalog, there's a disconnect between the request offerings and the purchase order module. So in an effort to have the product catalog items that are offered in the service catalog flow to the purchase order, here's an example of requesting the item, such as this laptop right here. And as we move to the next screen, you'll notice that I'm inserting a requested item. Now, for this to work properly, you would need to create a custom object for linking from the request to the purchase order. So in this scenario, I've created a requested item object, and I'm inserting from the request offering what was ordered, how much it was, and utilizing the product catalog item details to achieve this. You'll see that as it's requested from the offering, it shows up under the request, and you'll see the request number, the requested item number, and what was ordered. As you move over to the requested item workspace, From here, you'll be able to add it to the purchase order. The screenshot below shows a quick action to be able to drop down and choose which purchase order this item should be added to. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Gary, looks like you're up with tips and tricks here.
All right, perfect. So first things off, I'd like to start out with Ivanti has this really awesome online community they keep trying, that they've gone ahead and acquired here and worked up to build. A lot of really great people, a lot of great knowledge on there. If you're not on it already, I highly recommend it. My first tip trick here kind of comes from the community, showing some things you can do here in service request. So this is a typical screenshot of an email that would go out for an approval. So just like when we're doing the tiered approvals, just like when we're doing any approvals, we have that approval action that gets sent out. And this action here sends this default email that goes out to our customers that say, hey, we've got something for you to approve. But how many times have we heard from our customers that this doesn't give me any information I need, right? This is just a generic thing that says someone has requested it and we need you to approve or deny it. Well, this awesome trick allows us to simply insert quite a bit of information right into this one. So if we could go ahead to the next slide, John. So as we can see here, utilizing this trick that was posted on the Ivanti community, now we can include all of the information that was provided by the customer in the request offering. And this is just done with a simple trigger, and it's added to every single request offering as they come in. And it really is such an awesome tip and trick. We did this for quite a bit of customers here.
Now, Gary, does that bring in all of the parameters of the request offering or just certain ones?
It is actually, the person that posted it did such a great job. They actually configured it where if you preference the value with hidden underscore, it doesn't provide it in that email. So it doesn't, it allows you to have some back-end attributes that don't get sent along to all your customers.
That's great. Do you want to really quickly show back that screenshot that we didn't get into the slides?
Sure. So let me go ahead and snag the sharing. Okay. So this we're going back to the question about how we would wait for a web service script in a workflow. And so this is that one screenshot that didn't come through. So again, we would go ahead and kick off our web service script right here, and we would wait for the results to come back. And simply what I've done is I've created a field on service request that's the output of that script. So once the script runs, it does whatever it does, whatever it is that we need to do, and it updates this one field. So this workflow will wait for up to 5 days and then time out and maybe create a backup task for IT to do the process manually. Or if the web service results is no longer empty and gets populated, it'll automatically continue through and send off that usual email to the customer letting them know that their request was fulfilled automatically.
Perfect. Thanks.
Yep, thank you. All right, our next tip and trip here is about creating reusable workflows. So the idea here is in programming, right, everybody creates a function. Why write something 10 times when you can write it once and call it 9 other times? So this is the same situation here. We're taking in the request offerings. So how many times have we go through this process, right, where we've got a request offering, we just need to create something for somebody to request a keyboard and mouse, maybe a mouse pad, you know, again, those consumable items. And then we come to find out that some of these items we might need manager approval. And so we go through and we say, okay, well, if it's approved, we go down this path, but then we want to handle all of the other ways properly, right? So if it's denied, do we send them an email? Do we update the service request? If it's canceled, if no one approves, if maybe their employee account, their manager isn't added on there. And these workflows can start becoming quite complicated. We've got a really good example here on this next screen where we've gone ahead and built out that whole process in a single workflow. And as you can see, I mean, it's going off to the right. There's lines going everywhere. Things can get really complicated really quickly. So what we typically recommend is, if we go ahead to the next screen, is we'll build out an approval workflow and do it pretty well once, and we'll create this directly in service request itself. And so as you can see here, right, we can do manager approval, we can get second tier approval, We can even go like what Craig did earlier with the tiered approvals of needing to get multiple approval levels. And then we can do all the actions and all the emails right here and build them out once. And then if we go ahead to the next screen, we can, in our request offering, just do a simple get approval. And all we need to do is check to see if the outcome status of that workflow was approved. If it was, we'll continue on and do whatever we need to do. And then if it's not approved, we know that that workflow has already sent out the emails. It's already updated the status of the service request offering. It's already done everything we need to do. And we can just simply stop this workflow. And it allows these workflows and additional request offerings as they come up to be spun up and modified and done as quickly as we need to or want to. One quick thing, if we go back to that screen, yep. So another really great tip and trick that we just want to kind of throw in here as well. If you have a bunch of notifications that you're sending out, we highly recommend that you create the notifications as a quick action and call it specifically as a quick action instead of using the notification action itself, because then you can quickly go and modify that quick action to update the email, to send it to somebody else different, to maybe include a different logo. And then you don't have to go in and modify all the workflows inside your system, or maybe the 10, 20, 30 request offerings that are sending out that email. And right here, you've just gone ahead and updated all in one fell swoop. And I think that sums it up for me.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Craig. Great tips and tricks section there as well. And Todd and Brian. Brian, I'll let you go ahead and close it up here, but I do want to remind everybody a survey is coming out to you. Don't forget that Ivanti interchange, that virtual interchange coming up in June. You can go to our events page, ncsi.us/events, and sign up for that. That's on June 18th. I believe it's about 2.5 hours of content as well. Unfortunately, we weren't able to go to Vegas, so we're going virtual this year. So, Brian, thanks to you and your team and Todd Hogan for putting this on. A lot of work here, so thanks for doing that.
Thank you, everyone. One quick question. There was somebody who asked a question about the benefits of Ivanti Service Manager over Landesk Service Desk. And so I'll just say they are vast and significant improvement in usability, administration, and in the service catalog, primarily the pieces that are there. So if you'd like to get more information, please feel free to reach out to me, my email, and I can schedule a separate call and we can go through those in more detail.
Okay, perfect. And if you have any other questions as well, feel free to reach out to anybody on our team. We thank you for joining us, Brian. Thank you to you and your team for doing all the legwork here for this. It was a great virtual user group. We hope to get back into a physical user group at some point in the future. But for now, this is the way it is. So thank you very much, Brian. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.